Injuries and professional sports go hand in hand, and the stories that are told from the elite athletes that have experienced this are often interesting to hear from the point of view of how it affected their performance and career. But what if your injury is life-changing and you are not a professional sportsman? Does that make your story less or more interesting? Well, if your name is Trevor Stott-Briggs, then your story most certainly is a fascinating one that needs to be told. The Rugby Business Network is fortunate to have Trevor join us and to chat a bit about his rugby life and his book titled Confessions of an Ex-Hooker Aged 66 and a Half, A.K.A. Don't Stop Believing. Trevor, thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Well, based on the title of your book, Trevor, we can assume that you are now probably over the age of 66 and a half years.
Yeah, I had my 69th birthday the other day.
Oh,
so
right.
I'm time's marching on, but never mind.
Well, tell us, for how many years you have been involved in the sport of rugby, and from what age did you start playing?
Well, I actually started at school, but I went to a football school, so nobody played. So I just managed to get a few guys together to kind of play touch rugby, much to the chagrin of our sportsmaster. But then I didn't do anything till I ended up in Kenya in about 1976, and I was offered a job there, and the guy that offered me a job was the captain of Kenya, captain of East Africa, captain of the nondescript rugby club there in Nairobi. And so he said, "Do you play rugby?" I said, "Well, not really, but I'll learn." So I started a little bit late, really, but and I've been doing it ever since. So from 26 to 66, I guess that's 40 years, so it's enough.
Wow, absolutely. Well, rugby as a professional sport can be played up until you're roughly about 35 years old, if you're lucky enough.
Yeah.
As a non-professional player, though, you can play for as long as you like, provided you are physically capable. But playing rugby into your 60s, Trevor, some people would think that you must be mad. What kept you going for so long?
I was one of the founder members of the Philippine Rugby Union because I lived there for about 26, 27 years. I was a founder member of the Referee Society there. I came to the UAE where I am now, and I was one of the founders of the Dubai Sharks Rugby Club, and also a coach here, not a coach, well, a coach for kids rugby as well, and a referee here. So in the end, I was still running around and I was still fit. So even at the age of 62, I still felt like I could run around the field, and I could run fairly quick, and I used to go to training every week. So, there wasn't really a reason just to say, no, I'm going to stop. So I ended up playing in vets rugby, of course, but some of the vets were only 35 and I was 60-something. So there was a bit of a difference.
Yeah. Well, in the first chapter of your book now, Trevor, which was obviously published last year, 2017, it starts off with you describing the accident in which you broke your neck, which messed up your nervous system, and it left you as a paralyzed quadriplegic. Can you touch on that moment for our listeners? When, where, and how did your life-changing incident occur?
Well, it was in a vets rugby tournament in a place called Sharjah, which is just north of Dubai in the UAE. A usual vets tournament, and we were playing 10-a-side, and I was the hooker. It was a really tough match. It was one of those because the opposition happened to be Sharjah, and I think their front row was all 35 in a day, and ours was, I was 62, and the two props were in their 50s, so we were significantly older. And it was one of those really hard hit. Every time you scrum down, it was a hard hit. And I came off at half time, and I was on the touchline because we had rolling subs. And then just in the last minute of the game, the guy who'd taken over from me, he'd had enough, and he said, "Can you come back on?" So I went on for the last scrum of the last play of the game, the last minute, and we just packed down, and my two props slipped, unfortunately, and the opposition front row, they just kept pushing, and the only thing left to push on was me, and my neck was bent, and I went down, and I had one of those out-of-body moments, sort of floating up in the sky, watching myself slowly fall on the ground, and then eventually you kind of woke up again, and I was laid there, and our physio was next to me, and he said, "Trev, can you feel anything?" And I said, "No." "Can you move your toes?" "No." "Can you move your hands?" "They're really burning, so... They whisked me off to hospital and did CT scans and MRIs and that, and said, "Well, you've damaged your neck. It's fractured. The nervous system is messed up." And so that was the start of a long haul back because I couldn't move. Nothing happened. I was completely paralyzed below the waist, and my hands didn't work much at all either. It was just a start of what basically ended up being 5 or 6 years of continuous physiotherapy.
And it touches on my next question, which is obviously your rehabilitation process that you went through.
Yes.
What would you say was the standout moment for you during this entire time that you were on the road to recovery?
One of the things is you're laying there for a lot, particularly at the beginning. And you know, I had lots of visitors from the rugby club, from the referee society and stuff. And they came in, and one of the chairmen of the club came in and said, "Oh, what are you going to do now?" I said, "I'm going to write a book." Mm-hmm. And everybody said, "Yeah, you know." I said, "Well, no, I want to kind of document all this, you see, and see how it goes." And everybody went, "Yeah." But in the end, I just kept thinking about it, and people were very, very positive, and I just thought, well, one of the interesting things was, you know, when you're lying there, you're listening to the radio, and I was listening to music, and I kept hearing this song, "Don't Stop Believing," which is by the American band Journey, from way back in the 80s. And that song sort of really struck me as something, you know, don't stop believing in yourself. You know, it really was the punchline of the song. And I just thought, well, if that's it, if I can do it, you know, I never kind of thought I wasn't going to walk again. The doctors didn't give me much hope. And then until one day, about 6 weeks after the accident, my big toe on my left foot, I was able to move it like a quarter of an inch, eighth of an inch actually. And they said, "Oh, well, now you can do that because it's the furthest point from your brain. We think you might recover, but we don't know how much. We don't know how well, or you know, you'll be able to walk, you know, or what you'll be able to do. But we think you have a possibility of recovering." So it was just like, it's a typical kind of rugby thing, you know. You get tackled, you fall down, you get up again. So it was just automatic. Hey, I'm going to get up again. I don't want to be confined to a wheelchair. I don't see that as me. So, and I just hated that, being pushed around and you know, lifted in and out of bed and all that stuff. So, you know, it was, you know, just get up again and, you know, carry on with the game, if you like. Yeah.
Wow, incredible. Well, during this time of recovery, Trevor, you mentioned that you had some support from the rugby community coming in to check up on you. What other ways did the community reach out to you during this time?
Oh, it was fantastic. You know, I mean, we're all insured private insurance here through the companies we work for, but they all have a cutoff, you know, and they say, "Oh, yeah, we'll pay for your hospitalization and we'll pay for your operation." I had an operation on my neck. I've got 5 of my vertebrae, and C3 to C7, a brace with a titanium brace bolted into the vertebrae. They paid for that, no problem. But when it comes to what they call rehabilitation, they won't pay for it. They won't pay for the physiotherapy. And I was 2 years in a full time as an inpatient in a physiotherapy clinic, which was costing like about $10,000 a month, you know, because you had a 24/7 nurse, you were having physiotherapy all day, but all the rugby community, people I knew from UK, people I knew from Philippines, the clubs I played for, everything, all the clubs here in the UAE, everybody had fundraising events of some sort and raised an awful lot of money, which I really needed to help pay for this physiotherapy. It was a fantastic feeling, you know, that the people in the rugby community, many of which knew me, but some didn't, you know, they just, oh, he's just another guy that would just arrived in the country and there's this sporting event. But people came and people contributed. It was fantastic. A really nice feeling, you know, from the rugby community to raise all that money.
Oh, absolutely. So, well, now, Trevor, writing the book, it's not an easy accomplishment by any means from any person. But when you are a paraplegic and you're in the position that you were in the hospital, it's 1,000 times more challenging than we can only believe. You mentioned the song "Don't Stop Believing." Was there someone else perhaps, or some other motivating factor that gave you the inspiration to tell your story and to put it down onto the pages?
There were a lot of people around me that didn't get up. You know, the physios would say, this guy doesn't want to do it. Some people have been involved in road traffic accidents. Some people are involved in had a stroke or whatever. And they just didn't want to do anything, you know. And I just thought, well, if I can write a story that's interesting and amusing and has a few different facets to it, ranging from flashbacks to my earlier life, flashbacks to playing rugby, flashbacks to, life, the universe and everything, and family too. I mean, that's a huge thing, having the support of your family. Hey, sometimes you have arguments, why did you go and play rugby? My wife would say, at that age. Yeah, but in the end, the kids looked after me, and my wife looks after me. You get grumbles, of course, but you really need them,
Absolutely. Well, for those that have read your book, Trevor, they'll tell you that it certainly is humorous, but also inspirational, because you draw on other aspects of your life, which you just touched on, that are not related to rugby. Was it difficult, though, for you to look for the funniest side of your ordeal, which has the ability to leave many that are in your situation severely depressed?
Well, I was lucky. My wife loves taking photographs. So she took photographs, she took videos, she took this. And the music thing, there was a radio station that was playing Radio 2, here in the UAE. And nearly every morning when I woke up, they'd play some song that made me think, wow, that has impact on me. That I remember that song. It was great. And I sort of made a long list of songs that I liked, and I looked a lot at the photographs, and then I just sort of put together a list of chapters. And then I cherry-picked. I didn't write the thing like chapter 1 to chapter 60. I just said, okay, something today reminded me of that. Whether it was my fingers not working, having in splints, whether it was problems with bowel problems, bladder problems, you have all these different things. And whatever sort of inspired me on that day, I would write that chapter. And that's the way I thought the best thing to do. All of these things are happening. And suddenly you would get this idea of the twist to make it a little bit more interesting and amusing. It's like the fact that, I had 8 urologists to fix one piece of fishing tackle. That sort of thing. I mean, there were some crazy things, that happen, and you have to laugh about them. You can laugh afterwards. When you're doing it, it's like having a really bad day at work, and then you come home and you tell your wife, and it's funny. She thinks it's fun, and that's the way I tried to do it. There's awful things, this and that. You've got pain, you've got that. But if you sit and just think, well, that's funny, really. For somebody else. And I didn't want to write a doom and gloom story. I've seen a few of those. There's no point in being angry. What's the point? If you have a positive attitude, positive brainwaves, positive attitude, positive people around you, that makes all the difference. What's the point? The accident happened. You can't replay the video. It doesn't work. You just have to go forward, I think.
Absolutely. Well, Trevor, one thing which is certain is that the book, it wouldn't have been written, or this story wouldn't have been told at all if you didn't go through this life-changing injury on the rugby field. With that said, though, if you could go back in time, would you change what happened to you on that day on the rugby field at the age of 62?
Well, you probably have to say yes, you would. On the other hand, a lot of good things have happened as a result of it in a strange way. I don't recommend people going out to get injured to have a positive, life-changing accident. But, what you find is that people are very helpful. I've had all sorts of people come up to me. Now I can drive, I can work, I can go around. I work for an organization called the Energy Institute, which is a professional body. I represent them out here. But what I find is people come up and say, "Oh, do you need any help?" And it doesn't. And it's male or female. It's all sorts of nationalities. And it seems, you realize that people can be really nice to you. Just the staff in a hotel will help you. They'll help you button the top button of your shirt because you can't do that, And it's these little things that you suddenly find people are really nice to you if you're nice to them. That's the positive thing. Could I change it? Sometimes you go, I replay the video in my head. If I hadn't walked back on the pitch and just said, no, I'm not going to do that, would it have been different? And yes, it would, but you can't really say that. You can't, because, one door opens and another door closes. You don't know. You make a decision. You do it. It happens.
So true. Well, rugby, Trevor, is in your blood, and it's evident from the fact that, as you mentioned earlier, you were a co-founder of the Philippine Rugby Football Union, and between 2004 and 2006, you were the executive director, if I'm not mistaken. How did this come about, and what sort of effect did this have on your life during this time?
It was great because the strange thing about the rugby situation at that time in the Philippines was it was virtually 99.9% expat, and everybody assumed that Filipinos would not like rugby because, on average, they're a small Asian build, and we all they're not going to like that. And then luckily someone started training some Filipinos at a naval college, and it turned out they did like it, and slowly, it just kind of built up. I put together the first international team that played in an international game in Guam from the Philippine Rugby Union. It was 95% expats. I mean, there were 2 Filipinos in the squad. Within 8 years, the national team had become 100% Filipino, and they'd gone from Division 5, I think, up to Division 1 in the Asian Series. Wow. Remarkable, you would say. Wow, how did they do that? But they're great ball skills. They're good at chasing around the field. They virtually never drop the ball, and they actually do like tackling. So it was a great feeling to go from one extreme, like all expats in a foreign country, to all Filipinos. And that's when that really makes you feel good. You think, well, we started that, and we never thought it was going to turn out this way, but it has, and it's really positive.
That's an incredible story. One for another day, though. Trevor, let's go back to obviously your life-changing experience. And you've had a long history in rugby, which obviously includes being a player, a coach, a referee, and as we've just heard now, the founder of the Philippine RFU. From what you have seen over the years, do you believe that clubs, whether they are professional, semi-professional, amateur, are doing enough to raise awareness to prevent these life-changing injuries in the sport currently?
You feel, particularly from the referee side, the way that the laws have changed, particularly things like scrum, the breakdown and stuff like that, have been very strong on safety. And one of the first things that every referee and every referee coach is drilled into him is, it's the safety thing. The contest is important in the scrum, of course, and you don't want to take that away. But the safety of the players, you don't want it to fall down, you don't want people to slip, you want it to be set correctly. Everybody has a much more awareness of being careful about injuries than ever they used to. And that's a very good thing. And that runs right from the junior level all the way through to international. It's obvious, it's very obvious.
Well, going back to your book now, Trevor, one of the chapters is titled How to Conquer the World. And in there you speak about networking in rugby. Why do you feel this is important?
The job that I do, both socially and work-wise, I spend a lot of my time networking, and it is important, and it's amazing. The networks that we have that are available to us, from the internet to Facebook to Twitter to LinkedIn to this to that, all of those things now make it so much easier to stay in contact with people and to stretch out to a new set of people. I mean, my job here is as a business development guy trying to get more membership for my organization. Like the Rugby Business Network, that's what I have to do. So I have to use all that media. And it's amazing. It is important. And it's fantastic when you can suddenly reach, another 5,000 people or 10,000 or 20,000 just by one message, Yeah. I mean, they may not all come back to you instantly, but you've planted some small seed in them, and that's amazing. I mean, complete difference to, the days when you had to write a letter or ring somebody up or go and see them. But, it's still nice to go and see people, of course. But the whole networking thing is amazing these days.
Most definitely. Well, finally, Trevor, for those that have not read your book yet, but after listening to our conversation are now interested in getting their hands on a copy, what do you hope they will take away from your story?
I'd like people just to be positive. It's not just about having a rugby accident or any kind of accident. Obviously, there's a rugby theme in the book, but I tried not to make that the first thing. I didn't put a rugby ball on the cover, for instance. I mean, I love the game, and it's still the best game in the world. You cannot beat the rugby for the camaraderie, for the respect, and for the discipline. People said to me, "You let your kids play after you have broke your neck." I said, "Well, if you had a car accident, would you stop people driving a car?" No, it's still the best game in the world. The message I'd like to say is don't give up. Don't give up. whatever it is, whether it's just a bad day, you've lost your job, it doesn't matter whether it's an accident or something physical or something mental, something emotional. Just be positive. And if you're positive and think you can get out of it, you can. The minute you say, I don't think I can do that, you can't do it. You just have to keep thinking, I can do this. Yeah, I can do this. I can walk across that room. I might fall over on the way over there, but I can do it, yeah? And that's the message, really, is don't stop believing in yourself, whatever it is.
Wow. Brilliant way to end it off right there. Well, Trevor, Confessions of an Ex-Hooker, age 66 and a half, A.K.A. Don't Stop Believing, is a long title for a book, which is appropriate, though, because your life-changing story will remain within the reader's mind long after that they have put the book down. Thank you for speaking with us here at the Rugby Business Network.
Thank you very much, and hope people enjoy the book.